This is a giant warning sign. If you're seeing this in your toilet bowl, it's a sign your gut, liver, and immune system are having serious problems, and it's only gonna get worse unless you do something about it right now. And I'm gonna show you what to do to fix your liver, gut, and immune system in this video. Now, what if I told you that what your poop looks like is a report card for the health of your liver, gut, immune system, and microbiome? If your poop is not right, it's a huge red flag. You're not doing well, and it will impact your cravings, your fat burning, your blood sugar, your energy levels, your sleep, your joint pain, hormones, skin health, and even your risk of developing heart disease or cancer. I'm gonna go over exactly what your poop should look like and how often and when you should be pooping, and I'll also review the best strategies to optimize your bowel movements. So let's start with what should your poop actually look like? Well, it should be brown, log-shaped, smooth with slight cracks, not mushy, pebbly, or pencil thin. The consistency should be like a soft banana or soft served ice cream. In fact, it should look like a coiled up snake looking right back at you. That's a nice look, right? It should slowly move to the bottom of the toilet, not sink quickly or float at the top, and it should be smooth and not explosive or hard to push out. Your poop shouldn't stink. That doesn't mean it smells good. It's not like it smells great, and something you want to be around, but it shouldn't have a noticeably strong smell. And if it does, that is a problem. Now, what does your poop color mean? Let's go through all the different colors. Let's start with brown. That is normal. That's due to the bile. See, bile is produced in your liver. It's also stored in your gallbladder, and it shoots out to help you digest your food. In particular, it helps emulsify fats, but it also is an antimicrobial. It helps kill off bad bacteria and microbes in your small intestine, and it actually creates the brown color of the stool, and its bile helps carry toxins out of the body. So your stool should be brown. If you're seeing other colors like green, that may be normal, especially if you're eating a lot of green foods. However, in some cases, it could be involved with a bacterial infection or irritable bowel syndrome. If it's yellow, that can be a problem. That typically indicates it's greasy, foul smelling. These kind of yellow, greasy stools are often an indication of poor fat digestion, which may indicate too much fat in the diet, or you could have malabsorption. That could be from pancreatitis, could be from gallbladder disease or celiac disease. So if it's yellow, greasy, and foul smelling, that is a warning sign. Now, black, let's talk about black. That could indicate a stomach or duodenal ulcer, or it may be due to taking iron supplements. If you're taking a lot of iron supplements or black powders like humic acids, shilajit, charcoal, if you're taking a lot of charcoal, or bismuth, like Pepto-Bismol, for example, that could also cause black stools. White or clay-colored stools is definitely not normal. It may indicate an obstruction of the bile ducts. Again, bile is what actually makes your stool brown. And so if the bile ducts are obstructed and bile isn't able to flow through, then your stool will not have that brown color. It could be white or clay, and that could be a problem in the liver, gallbladder, or the pancreas. How about red? That may be due to consuming beets. You may have experienced that before. If you ate a bunch of beets, you should notice within a day that the stool is very red, purplish. Okay, that's not an issue. However, if you didn't eat beets, it may be a sign that there's bleeding in your large intestine or colon, and you should absolutely get that evaluated. So you have to ask yourself, did I have beets? If you're seeing red in your stool, if not, get that evaluated. It could be bleeding in your stool. Now, let's talk about different types of poop. These are the most common types of poor quality poop that people are experiencing on a regular basis. The first one is pebble poop, and I call that rabbit droppings. That's typically related to constipation. If you're having that, these kind of little tiny pebbles, it's typically a sign you need more hydration, and also taking things like magnesium and other electrolytes can really help create the nice, large, kind of banana-shaped stool like we talked about earlier. Now, loose, mushy, or watery stools. That's obviously not good as well. That can often be a gut inflammation or a gut infection or food sensitivities. The most common food sensitivities that I see are gonna be things like a sensitivity to gluten or wheat in general, also sensitivities to nuts, to eggs, to soy, to dairy as well. So if you remove some of those most common food sensitivities, then it should cause your stools to improve. So that's something you can look at, but also infections, things like H. pylori infections, Citrobacter infections, parasite infections, Candida infections can all cause loose, mushy, or watery stools. How about floating or oily stools? That typically is malabsorption of fats. You see, again, bile should flow out, should help emulsify the fats, and you should have normal brown colored stools that don't float. They're not looking greasy. If you're noticing floating or oily stools, there's too much fat in the stool. Again, that can be coming from sluggish liver or gallbladder, or maybe you just had a really, really fat-based meal. You ate a whole lot of grease. That can also cause it. But typically, if you're noticing that consistently, it's a sign of poor bile flow from a sluggish liver and a gallbladder that's having problems. Some things you can do to help improve liver and gallbladder function are to take bitter greens, right, or bitter herbs in general. That's going to be things like arugula, ginger, apple cider vinegar, cilantro, radishes, dandelion. These can all be really, really helpful. Artichokes are also great for helping thin the bile. A great supplement is milk thistle as well as tudka. Tudka is a bile salt, helps thin the bile, allows the bile to flow more effectively through the liver bile ducts as well as the gallbladder, and that's going to help you break down those fats more effectively. You can also reduce the amount of fat that you're consuming in a meal. You can take digestive enzymes to help support good digestion as well. Now, let's talk about greasy or shiny stools. So some people won't describe their stools as oily, but instead they'll describe them as greasy or shiny. But it's really the same thing. That's an issue with fat digestion. You need to support your stomach acid, bile flow, and enzyme production. Just like I said, bitter herbs, again, dandelion, parsley, cilantro, ginger, all really good for helping improve bile flow. And if you have any of those kind of issues, you really need to take action right away, because when your gut is inflamed, it's going to impact every other area of your body. So it's really important that you start taking action with this. Now, if you're dealing with constipation, let's talk about some of the main causes. What I typically see are dehydration and electrolyte deficiencies. Most people are just not hydrating well throughout the day. They're not consuming a trace mineral or electrolyte-rich diet. And so this is where good hydration and also adding in some electrolytes, like taking a magnesium powder or taking a actual electrolyte powder with sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium and chloride can really, really help as far as helping improve good hydration and bowel movements. If you're consuming a diet high in processed foods, that's also going to contribute to constipation. If you're dealing with chronic stress is going to slow down bowel activity, leading to constipation. And also, most of us, we have kind of a normal routine for bowel movements, whether it's, early in the morning, like for me, I like to move my bowels once or twice within the first hour and a half of waking up. If I have to get up and I'm really busy early, I've got to get going, that can oftentimes lead to constipation. So having like a normal routine can really help. A lot of people have bowel movements right after meals. And so if you have a meal, but then you're very busy and stressed, that oftentimes can stop that natural bowel activity and cause constipation. So any sort of disruption in your normal activities can really be a contributor to constipation. So it's good to kind of plan out your day so you're able to get at least 1 to 2 good bowel movements in at a kind of a set, almost like a normal period of time that you normally go each day. In fact, I always say you want to move out whatever you consumed 24 hours later, you want it out of your body. So if you ate lunch at 12 o'clock, for example, you want to have the waste from that meal out of your body by 12 o'clock the next day. If it sits in your system, it's going to rot and putrefy. It's going to release all these different endotoxins, things like lipopolysaccharides, which are bacterial fragments that are going to get into the bloodstream and drive up inflammation throughout your body. So you want to get that out of your system. The longer it sits in there, the worse effect it's going to have, the more LPS is going to be getting into your bloodstream, driving inflammation throughout your body. So again, you want the waste materials out within a 24-hour period of time. A good normal routine is going to help you get that out. Now, Another common issue I see with constipation is poor vagal tone. Now, what is the vagus nerve? It's actually the longest nerve in our body. Vagus, or vagal, is actually Latin for wanderer. It travels from our brainstem, it's cranial nerve 10, into all of our major organs, our heart, our lungs, and into our intestines, and it stimulates the natural muscle contractions in the intestines. We call that peristalsis, and that helps stimulate bowel activities. Now, certain medications, things like opioids, NSAIDs, muscle relaxers, diuretics, heartburn medications, blood pressure medications, antihistamines, sedatives, all those things actually slow down vagal tone, and they also, on top of that, lead to constipation. So if you're taking any of those medications, that can be a major contributor to having slow bowel movements. And then finally, gut dysbiosis or gut infections in general can lead to constipation, but they can also lead to diarrhea and loose stools like I was talking about earlier. So if you're having constipation, you're having diarrhea, you're trying to set up your normal routine, you're trying to hydrate better, taking in electrolytes, you're trying to take deep breaths and keep your stress under control, and yet you're still having constipation and diarrhea, you should really get evaluated for some sort of infection. In fact, if you have chronic diarrhea, it's most likely related to parasites, things like Giardia, C. diff, Campylobacter, Salmonella, Shigella, or Entoamoeba histolytica. All of those can trigger diarrhea. Now, you can use the GI MAP stool test. It's the best stool test on the market, in my opinion, to look for any of those pathogens. You'll see different genetic markers, right? That's actually what it's looking at, DNA fragments of these pathogens. And then it can be treated with natural herbs or pharmaceuticals. I prefer natural herbs because they actually impact, we can use a whole bunch of them, and they can impact those infectious microbes in a number of different ways without creating any sort of resistance. And so they tend to work well. What are some natural herbs? Things like Mimosa pudica, clove, garlic, oregano oil can be really helpful. There's a whole number of different herbs. Sweet wormwood, black walnut, these things are all great for helping get rid of these pathogens. Now let's talk about some other key strategies to improve pooping. I talked about having a consistent time. The best time, in my opinion, is in the morning within about 30 to 90 minutes after you wake up, and then also shortly after meals. You see, between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m., your colon is most active. That means you get the best peristaltic activity, the best muscle contractions in your gut in that first window of waking up. So between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m., I recommend when you wake up, hydrate really well, good hydration, and also drink warm beverages. So doing some herbal tea, doing some coffee, something along those lines, that will actually help stimulate that vagus nerve and activate that peristaltic wave to get things moving through your system. Also, when you eat a meal, that activates peristalsis as well. So that's why a lot of people are able to go to the bathroom after they consume a meal. So in the morning and then after meals are gonna be kind of the best times to get your bowel movements out. I recommend at least 1 to 2 bowel movements per day, at least 1 to 2 per day. A lot of people are just having 1 to 2 a week. That's crazy. That's so much endotoxin debris that's in the system driving inflammation. So in the morning, make sure you're getting good bowel movements, okay? For some people, hydration really helps. For other people, going out for a walk, right? Just going out and getting some movement in will help them move their bowels. Now, other people, walking actually slows down bowel activity. They need to kind of sit still or find it like a good posture. Like my wife likes to sit on her bed and drink coffee. And coffee actually is great. It helps stimulate peristaltic activity in your bowels. And that helps her be able to go to the bathroom regularly, right? So for me, sitting down, in fact, actually sitting on my knees, like if I'm having extra trouble moving my bowels, I'll actually get kind of almost in like a prayer position where I'm on my knees. And that seems to relax my colon and allow things to kind of move through and gets me ready to go make a bowel movement. And so finding the right posture, right, good hydration, those can be really important strategies for helping you move your bowels well in the morning. Now, like I said, good hydration and electrolytes in general is gonna be important throughout the day to keep things moving through your body. You don't want things sitting like a stagnant pond. You want things moving through your system like a river, right? And that's gonna help move out a lot of toxins. Another key strategy is don't snack. This is something that a lot of people make this mistake. They're snacking. And when you snack, right, it actually stops something called your migrating motor complex, which is actually the street sweeper that gets activated in the gut between meals. So stop snacking and you'll activate that street sweeper, the migrating motor complex. When you snack, you turn that off so the peristaltic activity stops and you're not gonna be able to poop as well. So I recommend consuming 2 to 3 really good blood sugar stabilizing meals each day. That should be all you need. High protein meals, getting 30 to 50 or more grams of high quality protein, consuming real foods, consuming colorful fruits and vegetables in your meals, also adding in things like natural bitters, things like arugula, apple cider vinegar, lemon or lime, radishes, artichokes, dandelion, cilantro, coffee, or if you don't feel as good with coffee, using green tea could be good, or like a dandelion tea or a ginger tea. All can be really helpful for helping you move your bowels, thin your bile, and get things flowing through your system more effectively. I talked about that normal morning rhythm, right? Having a warm beverage in the morning can be one of the best things you do. Coffee, for most people, that works really well, or you can do a warm herbal tea. Relax and find a posture that works best for you to poop. Walking, like I talked about before, for some people, that is a game changer. Just going out for a walk really helps get them get the peristaltic activity in their gut going and helps them move their bowels. Now, here's another game changer. Use a Squatty potty. I know that's got kind of like a childish name, but really it's just a stool that pulls your knees up. You see, when our ancestors, before we had toilets, when they would go potty, there would be a hole in the ground, and the way their posture would be, they would have, their butt close to the ground, and their legs, their knees would be up in the air. So they would be in this sort of position that allows for kind of a complete evacuation of your colon, right? It kind of straightens your colon and allows for better poop quality. Now, we don't want to go back to pooping in the ground, ideally. We still want to use our toilet bowl. So we can get this little stool called a Squatty potty that we put our legs up and our knees go up in the air, and that helps to straighten out that colon and allows for us to kind of completely clear out our colon and allows for more effective bowel movements. Now, what are some of the best supplements? I talked about magnesium. I think that's the best one, and most people are deficient in magnesium. So taking a good magnesium can be really helpful, and just electrolytes in general. I like brands like, for example, Element electrolytes are a really good one. It's got the right ratio of sodium to potassium as well as magnesium in there. And you can also get a really good quality magnesium powder as well that you can put in water that will help, like a magnesium glycinate or a magnesium citrate or a magnesium threonate. That can all help your body, help relax the muscles in your body, help support your brain, and support good bowel movements. Now, I mentioned milk thistle and tudka earlier. I like these as supplements to really get the bile moving better, to help support liver, gallbladder function. They're some of the best things you can do to help support detoxification and good bowel movements. If you're still having problems and you're hydrating well, you're taking magnesium electrolytes, you're taking milk thistle and tudka, and you've worked on reducing infections in your gut, but you're still having issues, there's something called Cascara sagrada bark, which is a natural laxative. But you have to do this with soothing agents, things like aloe, ginger, fennel. Those are all very soothing on your gut. Whereas the cascara root, that bark, I should say, the cascara bark is actually kind of irritating to your gut. So you combine it with aloe, with ginger, with fennel, and other antimicrobials, things like wormwood, garlic, and black walnut. And that works really well for moving your bowels. When you do that, you know you're gonna move your bowels well. You're also gonna help eliminate different infections that could be in your gut with those antimicrobials and soothe the gut. That's where the ginger, the aloe, licorice can be good. Fennel, really good for soothing the gut. And we have all of those ingredients in our Bowel Mover product. This is one of our best-selling products. It's called Bowel Mover. And it works great, right? We have so many 5-star reviews on this product from Cellcore, helping people get regular with their bowel activity. Now, I do recommend with Bowel Mover right? If you use it, let's say 2 weeks on, try taking a week off so you don't develop a dependency on that cascara root or that cascara bark. I think that's important. So go 2 weeks on and 1 week off and see if you're able to still have good bowel movements. I think that's important. And you can also drop in something called oxy powder, especially if you're sensitive to any of the herbs, right? Or the barks that are in the bowel mover. We have something called oxy powder, which is an oxygen-based magnesium that gets in the intestines and really helps activate peristalsis and move things out. So if people are still having issues, I'll rotate in the oxy powder during the week where they're off the bowel mover. And we also use the oxy powder if for some reason they're more sensitive to some of those herbs that are in the bowel mover, and that tends to work really well for helping support good bowel movements. Now, so let me transition into some of the most frequently asked questions that I get. And this is one of the most important ones. People will tell me, I have trouble pooping in the morning. What should I do to improve that? Well, I already discussed that, right? And so what we want to do is make sure we're hydrating first thing in the morning, warm beverages, super important, getting into a posture position, you got to be creative with this sometimes and just really listen to what your body's telling you. There's probably some sort of a sitting position or posture position that helps you move your bowels more effectively. So try that out. For some people, it works really well to go out and take a walk, and that helps them, right? Coffee can really help. Green tea can help. Warm beverages in general, warm lemon water can be really helpful. Hydrating in general is always going to be a good thing for helping move your bowels more effectively. So try that out. Another question I get is, I often have to strain a lot to have a good bowel movement. What should I do? Well, if you're straining too much, okay, that's a sign of constipation. Make sure you're hydrating with electrolytes, and that will really help. Taking extra magnesium powder can be really helpful as well. Now, another question I get is, if I have loose stools, what should I do to improve my bowels, right? And so if you have loose stools, hydration and electrolytes aren't going to be the answer, because they're going to obviously, if you're overhydrating, it's going to cause even more loose stools. Now, I always say better out than in, right? So better to have loose stools than to have constipation. That's my general rule. And if you are having loose stools, you do need to hydrate well and take electrolytes, because you're probably losing a lot in your stools. So you still want to hydrate well, but to actually affect the loose stools, I recommend taking some sort of herbal antimicrobial, things like wormwood, black walnut, mimosa pudica. That herb is actually really helpful for thickening up the stools and getting rid of a lot of different parasites and microbes that could be causing problems. Clove is another good one. Garlic is another good one. But also taking something like activated charcoal or clay, some sort of like a good clay, bentonite clay, can actually help thicken up the bowels, and it will actually bind and remove toxins from your system, including endotoxins, bad bacteria, things like that. So I will usually use higher doses of clay or activated charcoal with people that have loose stools to help thicken up that stool. For some people, they notice more fiber in their diet helps. For others, they notice it actually makes it worse. So you can experiment with fiber as far as like getting plant fiber, vegetables, eating more vegetables, eating seeds. You can get like a plant-based, kind of seed-based fiber made out of flax seeds and chia seeds and things like that. And try adding that to protein shakes and different smoothies, things like that, and see if that helps improve it, right? For some people, the extra fiber helps improve their bowels. For others, it doesn't, so experiment with that. So that's important for kind of thickening up those stools. And then finally, how do antibiotics impact stool quality? Well, antibiotics are going to kill off good bacteria that's in your gut. They're going to kill off all the different microbes, and in some cases, you're taking them to kill off bad bacteria, like salmonella, for example, that could be in your system. However, they're also going to damage the mitochondria within your gut, and they're going to reduce the amount of postbiotic compounds, these really therapeutic compounds like butyric acid, these short-chain fatty acids, urolithin A, that really support the intestinal lining. And so if you're taking antibiotics, I recommend adding in probiotics and postbiotics. Probiotics are going to help recolonize the gut, or at least support the production of good postbiotics like butyric acid and urolithin A that support the integrity of the intestinal membrane. So that's really key. And you can also take things like, for example, butyric acid, right? And taking supplements with butyric acid can really help support the strength and integrity of the gut lining, so you don't have leaky gut where large undigested food particles and bacteria and endotoxins are able to seep into the bloodstream, but instead you have a really strong and intact intestinal lining that prevents those things from getting out into the bloodstream, driving inflammation. So taking probiotics as well as good quality postbiotics and really making sure that you're consuming a really healthy diet, rich in protein, healthy fats, off the seed oils, getting good healthy fats from grass-fed animal products, from extra virgin olive oil, avocados, things like that. And then lots of colorful fruits and vegetables up to your tolerance point. That's all gonna support a healthy microbiome and support your recovery from taking antibiotics. So again, if you're taking antibiotics, think about it like having a surgery. You got to recover from that surgery. You got to do different things to help your body heal, right? And you got to do different things that maybe outside of your normal routine to recover from that surgery. It should be the same thing with antibiotics. They should only be used for a very short period of time. And then you take extra good care of your gut microbiome in order to recover and repair from it. And that includes doing things to help support good bowel movements, because you got to get rid of the waste. It's always better when it comes to all different toxic waste in our colon. It's always better to get that out than to have it sit in the system, rot, putrefy, and cause more problems. So hopefully this has been helpful. Please share this video with anybody that you know and that you care about, and we'll see you in a future video training. Be blessed.